questions or to challenge it, because quite a lot of it is probably wrong, please do so. So just to pick up on, just to pick up on where Joseph left off. Digital doesn't really mean anything without creativity in my view, and obviously I would say that because I'm creative. I think that creative is the meat of the digital sandwich, and I think that if what digital does, I think, is speed things up. It means that you can do in 6 minutes or 6 hours what you used to be able to have to take 6 days or 6 weeks to do. That leaves a lot of time, and that leaves time to do new stuff. It leaves time for innovation. It also leaves our audiences with a lot of time, and it leaves a massive market that we have to fill. So there's a massive vacuum. Oh yes, okay, that's probably good idea. Okay. Let's do that one. Okay, is that better? Yeah, good. Cool. So, what made that happen? Okay. So I made something new. So, I want to talk to start with about what I think creativity is. This is a slide I use quite a lot. It's the bricks of the tape. Now, this actually, some people I talk to provokes quite a lot of hostility. I talked to the Institute of Directors in Guernsey, and there was a lot of rumors of creative. I said, anybody could do that. And in a sense, that's obviously the point, that anybody could do it. But the point about that is, why is that creative? It's creative because at the time that it was done, it had never been done before. It created a massive debate about creativity. It got the debate about what is art, what is creativity, on the front page of the Sun. Probably the only time.
Tracy Emin, when her bed was done, it was twice that size. Her answer was because I say it is.
Yeah, that's an interesting response. I think it's. Personally, I would say it's probably art if everybody else says it is. But I mean, what I was going to say about this is that I don't think people like Tracy Emin would actually have been able to work if this hadn't been done. She might not even have got the idea to do it. This kind of changed everyone's idea about what art was, about what you could do, about what an installation was, about what it could be, and it's just part bricks. It's a brilliant summation of the idea that actually once something's been done, it's done. You can't do it again. I think this challenged everybody's idea of what art was, but it also challenged everybody to do something. Okay, so now what are you going to do? Follow that. Sorry, excuse me, my iPad's all down again. Now, I don't think art is origination. I don't think that's origination particularly. What I do think is that I'm a big believer in Dr. Johnson's idea or definition of art, which he said that art is something that had often been thought but never so well expressed. And in a sense, this summed up a reaction against the establishment. It summed up a reaction against the art world as it was, and how better to express a sense of disillusion, a sense of wanting to disrupt, than to place this in the main National Gallery in the UK. And obviously, the other thing that this did was it established the Tate as a kind of a creative centre and as a free-thinking centre. And I think it also did an awful lot for the image of UK art and for UK as a creative centre. You could even say that it founded the UK creative industries in some ways.
Well, was that the fact that they were brave enough to make the decision to put it in there rather than the bricks itself?
Absolutely.
They had that bravery.
Absolutely.
Which then spawned so many other things on the back of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it was, this is as much a work of art by the Tate Gallery as it is a work of art by the artist. This is a piece of, this is what I think is amazing about it. This is a piece of institutional art. This this is, if you like, almost the government saying, come on people, this is art. It's amazing. It was actually an amazing event. I remember it, and I wasn't
There's another thing about art. I don't want to hijack it, but is it about making people look at something in a new way?
Yeah.
I mean, we've all seen bricks, but because it's presented like that, we're looking at it in a new way.
Absolutely. And I think that's what Dr. Johnson was on about. He was saying, it's something I often thought members will express. It's absolutely, it's taking something familiar and putting it in a place and giving it context. It's absolutely unfamiliar. And I think that it's a hugely democratic piece of work because it's, as I say, it's in an institutional place. It's almost in an official place, and it was there for everyone to see us. When else is the debate about art and on the front page of the site?
Picking up on a couple of comments that have been made, there's almost nothing that says the sponsor is more important than the artist. Clearly, if that pile of bricks was outside Exhibition Motorworks, it's more democratic. It hasn't got the same sponsor, so it has nil value.
Yeah.
So the sponsor, and going back to the Tracy Emin, it is because I say it is. It's because the Tate has said it is. That's what's made it. The artist is almost ephemeral, come and go. I'm not sure many people can name the artist.
No, I don't think I can.
Yeah, so it's like a platform.
Somebody's good, sorry. Yeah, it is like a platform. And I think, just to come back to the point you were making, it's the time and the place as much as the artist. And I think this thing about the time, things being at the right time and in the right place is really important and is defining. So, if creativity is about democracy and accessibility, I think the question that I keep getting asked and the challenge that I keep coming across is, okay, so how accessible, how democratic? This is the Tate saying a good idea doesn't care who has it. How far can you take that? How far can you say a good idea doesn't care who has it? Now that's a really, really important question with tech and with digital, because obviously tech opens things up to different audiences and it allows you to approach audiences in different ways, but also it gives audiences access to creation and making as well. So that works both ways. Absolutely. Well, exactly. So it's a question of, it's not just a question of a good idea doesn't care who has it, it's a question of how do you actually judge that? What kind of mechanisms are there for judging that? So, I get a situation all the time where you present some creative work and the marketing guy, okay, yeah, but let's do some A/B testing. So I don't like A/B testing, it's cool. You get some interesting areas. But you read a lot of interesting, Harvard Business Review in particular have been peddling the idea that actually you don't need creatives because you can sort of just get stuff at random and test it and see what works. Now, they call it A/B testing, I call it monkey target theory. Because basically, the idea is that it basically, you just randomly generate stuff and see what works. Now, obviously, as a traditional creative, I actually find it quite effective, because it means I don't need people. So there's quite a lot of that's quite a big challenge. That's something that I spend quite a lot of my time talking about, countering, thinking about. I think the idea that Monkey could write Hamlet is a little bit fanciful, but there is a thing about speed, and actually somebody actually did work out the probability of a monkey writing Hamlet, and that was actually the probability of writing being able to write Hamlet. I understand why I'm checking it. Now, so actually, although the original theory said that given an infinite amount of time, a monkey could write Hamlet, actually, no, given that amount of time, whatever that means in time, a monkey could actually write Hamlet. So is it possible? Well, yeah.
Because quantum theory says
anything can happen at any time.
Everything's possible, some things are hard.
It's always seemed impossible until it's done.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's that like, that's the probability. 1 in 3.4 times 10 to the power of whatever it is. It's highly unlikely. I mean, just something. I know this is a bit trivial, but I just sort of go with this bit and just kind of work out. So basically, the Bumble Hive data center, which is the NSA in America, is capable of storing records. I think 10 to the power of 18 megabytes of information. So that kind of puts that figure into perspective. Yeah. You need however many of those to actually install the output from the monkey. And then, of course, the other thing is, if the monkey was producing Hamlet, just think how many pieces of junk mail it would have produced. Or how many Daily Mail readers. I mean, you've got, no, I mean, it's serious. I mean, if it produces Hamlet by random, it would produce all that stuff by random as well. Millions of it. And you have to platform that. So actually, it doesn't actually replace your judgment.
The question is, has the monkey read Hamlet before it started? Because
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Because would it stop as soon as it realises it's gone on the wrong track? And make it quicker or slower? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's a variable which I haven't considered. But the other point, of course, is that if you really want a copy of Hamlet, you can go buy one from the bookshop where they spend millions of dollars developing data storage centers and processing systems to actually process the matters out. Just go buy a copy of the play. So I think that the real point is that Hamlet is actually a play about free will and about the human capacity to actually act. Actually, getting into some similar areas to the 10 bricks in some ways. It's like what does determine your action, and to what extent is your action predetermined by culture or by your will to do something different. If a monkey did eventually produce Hamlet, it might be a seminal work for monkeys or for a race of supercomputers, but it would be a seminal race of humanity. It's already done. I think that kind of brings me back to the point I was making about the 10 bricks, which is it's about time, place, and moment. And the point about Hamlet is that at the time that Hamlet was produced, it was an act of timeliness. And timeliness is what, as much as anything else, defines art and creativity. Okay, so I think that is that's one reason why I think the creativity is so important for us as a group of people, because I think that looking at our islands and looking at the situation of the islands at the moment and the situation of our economies, I've been talking a lot to people about how similar Guernsey and Jersey are in terms of their economic status at the moment. I think that the timeless of creativity is very important. I think we are actually at a critical moment in time in terms of being a group of people who are actually capable of taking this on, supporting it, and developing it, and generating something new and different. These are I'm not an economist, but these are basically these are two things. This is from by a guy called Thomas Piketty, who's a French economist. It's published earlier this year, and I'm sure the politicians present will understand this, but the graph here is about growth, and basically what it shows is that growth is not a growth of 4%, 3%, 2.5%, 3% is not normal. This is history. This is the 20th century. Growth is a 20th century phenomenon. This is argument. And his argument is that we're going to actually return to a period of normality. And we are in the process of returning to a period of normality, where growth is actually around about sort of 0.5%. Now, he's got some really compelling economic arguments, which is not very complicated. It's called capital, but it's very interesting. Some of them contentious, some of them I think just seem to be more common sense. You obviously can't keep growing at 3% because it's impossible. There isn't that much stuff in the world. This is an older piece. This is from a book called Links to Growth, which was published by two economists in 1972. And this was their prediction. And actually, scarily, it's pretty much exactly the same species. And if you see, the Guardian published this last week, and they mapped reality against the projection. And the Guardian pointing out that actually so far, according to this, we're just about on a cliff and we're about to fall off it. So, I mean, okay, that's still doing, but, I think that there is a time to think about economic diversity, and now is a really good time to do it. And obviously, we can see from what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years that finance industry is some people seem to think it was. So I think that now is definitely a time to think about that. I just want to say a bit more about creativity and digital arena. I used to say this a lot. I can't remember who said it, some planner in some agency in the early 90s. Every day, the average person sees around 2,000 advertising messages, used to use it in client presentations as well, kind of making sure that the messages cut through. If they see 2,000 messages in a day, what you're going to do to make sure they remember your one. I just thought, actually, I thought 6 months ago, I just thought I'd get some stats and try and update that.
Will that increase now with project? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Every minute of every day, we create more than 2 million email messages, 2 million Google search queries, 48,000 new YouTube videos. I mean, it's insane how much information is going out there. Now, I mean, I don't know how many messages and pieces of information and stuff that the average teenager sees in the course of his day, but I would put a fair bet that it's a lot more than 2,000. There's certainly a lot more available. So I think that
you may be missing a few zeros on the last minute. Or is that?
I mean, that's the minute, yeah.
Could it not therefore get significantly harder? It must be pretty easy to do creativities type stuff. Maybe 15 years ago you had 3 TV channels and 4 radio channels. That's it.
Absolutely.
The challenge isn't just the attention span, it's the fact that they're all over the place.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I was talking to the last year, and somebody asked me what my favourite campaign was. And actually, I had to kind of think back 10 years to think of an ad campaign that I can kind of remember as an ad campaign. Because you kind of don't get that campaign anymore. You get great brands. I mean, you get Apple and Nike, amazing brands, but you don't really think of them in terms of, I mean, Heineken, for instance, in the 60s, you thought of in terms of their ad campaign. You don't think that. You just don't, it doesn't kind of work like that. And for that reason.
It's more about that digital journey, wherever they're seeing the messages, driving them forward through to the cash point or through to the call to action. It's less about a campaign instilling it in somebody's brain, and more about this journey wherever they are on that campaign trail.
Yeah.
These figures are broadcast figures, and I think the reason why Google and Facebook are so highly valued is because they're not broadcasting, they are targeting individuals. Like Google knows what you just searched for, so I see different adverts to other people. Likewise with Facebook. So I think, it's not a funnel. It's not a funnel anymore. It's or the funnel is inverted. It's coming down. It's targeting on the individual rather than coming from a single place and broadcasting out to everyone.
Narrowcast.
Absolutely. Now there's a really interesting kind of difficulty with that, I think, because if you look at what Facebook and Google do at the moment, Google Plus, they have the technology to look at someone and know who they are. You can know those stuff by plugging into Facebook or by plugging into Google Plus. Basically, so Facebook have a facial recognition technology that is something about 45% less accurate than human facial recognition. So they can know who you are from the photo. And of course, once they know who you are, they have all the data. They know all this stuff about you. And there's nothing to stop them showing you anything. There's nothing to stop people from accessing. So there's a huge issue. Yes, you can find out, and of course it's possible. But to what degree is it actually acceptable? Will Facebook ever use their facial recognition technology to actually show you when you're looking at the page? Now, of course, that would involve all sorts of breaches of privacy that you can't imagine ever happening. They have to actually be able to look at you through your screen's camera. But they do it.
Yeah, you can do that. I think they can control your camera.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So there are all sorts of, and how acceptable is that?
And one thing that I always say to people when they go, oh, they can track you, they're keeping all this stuff on you. Why is anyone interested in me? Who am I? I'm no one. But if you were Bill Gates or someone important, but I'm no more important than any other consumer. So it doesn't matter what information they have.
If you have money, it doesn't matter how much you are. You're just as important as any other consumer that has money.
If it's free, you are a product.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I agree that basically you're being sold to. If you want to be sold to a name, then fine. It's that breach of freedom.
I think it's a good thing. As long as you're being, we're all getting into personal preference, but if it's not being seen by a human and they're actually physically spying on you and you're just being part of an algorithm that's used to the benefit of them for their sales, but also for you, so you don't get sold car adverts when you've just bought a car, and so you don't get Viagra when you're not interested in Viagra. If I'm looking for a new TV, I'm really not interested.
But that's
if I'm looking for a new
at the
TV,
front there you've got the key point,
and that
which is
information that
manipulation.
they've got through me and put through an algorithm and tries to get TVs to me, that is a good thing for me because I'm looking for a TV. I know it means I might only see Samsung, when actually I might have done my research and I'm looking for a Philips because Samsung have got the most brand power in that particular region, for instance. But it's not someone that's looking through their camera, staring at me, trying to work out what moves.
Rule of unintended consequences, though, isn't it? About there's the great story in America of Target, who the way they looked at people's shopping baskets and everything, and they could identify what was happening in your life. And they sent this young girl targeted invites to come and buy pregnancy products or baby products. And her father, saying, why are you doing this? She got no idea. Of course, what she didn't know, but what Target knew, was that she was pregnant. And there's unintended consequences.
I think the other challenge, with advertising, we kind of almost now expect to be advertised to on the basis of research. We kind of accept that. What's much more subtle and what we really need to get to grips with is advertising is just one form of persuasion. And there are lots of other forms of persuasion that we may find less acceptable. If we educate people towards one school of thought and actually remove any alternatives or choices or other options. For car insurance, that's no great thing. But if it's political, or if it's religious, or if it has other consequences or messages.
Because they raised the news feed for a short period of time, either more positive or more negative, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They're also experimenting with taking pictures of the two people that you use most to contact, your two most popular friends, making a composite of it and using the face to endorse the product. It's not nice.
One of those is one of the faces because they know they're the most influential to you. But you already have that anyway because it says that so and so of your friends like this thing.
Yeah, they do that at the moment, but this is the
These
source
are
of
the two closest friends.
Yeah.
You always think negative, but there are so many opportunities.
No, absolutely. No, I agree with that. Absolutely. I'm not completely understanding the same. Like there's some technology, just saying that there's an issue about this. And I think as an advertiser, it would be fantastic if we could see people who are wearing crap glasses and say, look, you look nice in the knees. That's a computer. Easy. Do that easily. And it'd be better. It would enhance their life. It would try to sell our glasses. It would be brilliant. But for me, as an advertiser, one of the biggest kind of things that I think is a question mark over digital is just to what extent are we actually going to get regulated in the end? Because we probably will be. And I think that the cookie debate was a farce, but the way that went all over the place, governments don't know what to do with this, but they will work it out in the end. And something else that I want to talk about, this, I don't know if you've seen this, but this is actually quite shocking. It's kind of sort of registered sexually self-abusive song. And my son actually pointed this out. He said, "Oh, this is disgusting." And it's not actually pornographic or anything, but it is pretty shocking. And it's had 129 million views. Now that's extraordinary. Now a lot of those probably seeded or bought, I don't know, but an awful lot of them were. It's had over 800,000 likes, which is over 400,000 dislikes, which is unbelievable. It's an example of, I think, how stuff gets out there that would never, and actually, as I say, we all know there's loads of pornography. This is actually on YouTube. It's approved by YouTube. It's there for public consumption. I got my son to ask around. Loads of our friends, their kids watch this. Their likes are on it, and actually you think some of the kids have no, watch that. It doesn't watch our food like that. But as you say, there's a good side to it because this is a product of the same thing. This is raised over $100 million for ALS, and this is a great example of the good stuff that the internet can do. So I think we're in a real difficult moral area here where things can kind of go over the way, and I think that you could see, I could definitely, I think YouTube would probably take that down. I'm surprised it's still out there.
But doesn't that just boil down to stupid people can be famous because we allow them to be? It's something that of course stuff is available, but
It's just celebrity, mate.
Yeah, but it's down to us to make choices. And of course things are available and things are getting more available, but
Yeah.
I suppose.
That sort of celebrity has been made acceptable by modern pop culture.
And this, I don't know what it is about the video, but just things like Nuts magazine and all that stuff, they think that's what they need to aspire to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, men's health and all that.
Rightly or wrongly, is that not just a kind of case of very, very good marketing?
Depends how you look at it, isn't it? You can say that both of these things are.
Use words like good or bad,
Effective.
Powerful.
Miley Cyrus record, and I know all mine got into that, and it was, and again that was, it was very similar.
You could say it's kind of diluted, it's success by natural selection. It's kind of without judgment, and I think that brings me back to the kind of whole sort of monkey and type idea. At the end of the day, it comes down to time, it comes down to moments, but in all that output, it also comes down to that judgment. And creativity doesn't really work in the arena where there is no judgment. We do have to still make judgments, because obviously, it's very easy to judge between those two. This is work in terms of which one is positive for life and us, which one is probably going to be and negative, certainly for some people that are doing it. I think that it's an issue that I think is not going to go away. As an advertiser, I think that's one of the biggest issues that is facing us. Is how do we bring this multiplicity of information and data and as I say, the kind of the natural selection process of the audience voting, therefore it's right. How do we actually kind of reimpose and re-establish data things?
The audience voted for Hitler. That's the trouble.
Exactly.
The audience voted for Hitler, I said. That was the trouble. So it's just because the audience votes, it's not the trouble.
The audience is also very fickle because most people are fed up of seeing KLS ice bucket challenges now.
So, I think, one thing that we've tried to do as well is to use the triple spectrum design to take advantage of this what's the name, and I think most people see this already. That obviously reached 2.5 million people, and probably got as much publicity as a added break coronation stream. The problem with this, of course, is that you can only do this every now and then. It's not something we can kind of switch up and do all the time. We do it as often as we can, but it's not something that we can do constantly. So I just wanted to kind of finish up and then sort of open up to everybody, just to be very thought about how creativity can work in a slightly different way. We talked a lot about the fact that the message can't really create the audience anymore, but obviously it's not impossible to allow the audience to create a message, but also but to do so in a way that allows you to have some kind of brand control. Now that's a tricky area. Just to give you an example of that, we've talked a lot about opening up shootable spec savers and having a public shootable spec savers page. Every time we've done it, we've either got really offensive material or really poor quality material. So it sort of turns into a bit of a kind of an online living framed board and things. So it's not always easy to do that. So what I'm saying is that you can't just go, okay, the audience is going to make our message where, hey, let's go viral. It doesn't work. I mean, there's obviously a lot of creative judgment that goes into that, and it has to be timely, it has to be relevant, it has to be about time, place, and so on. And the point about trying to turn things around and making the audience make messages, I think that there's also a lot of judgment and a lot of input from advertisers that can actually apply to that area to involve people and to try and create communities and to create campaigns that work in a slightly different way but still communicate brand values in a controlled way. I've just got a couple of examples of that. I mean, obviously, I've mentioned brands like Nike and Apple are very good at things. This is ancient. This is like in the 60s by a guy called Howard Gossage. I don't think anybody's heard of Howard Gossage. He was kind of the other. He was the other sort of 60s guru of advertising up until Bernbach. Bernbach ran DDB, which did all the famous Volkswagen, big small kind of ads which everybody knows about. Gossage is not very well known, but he ran a very successful advertising agency in San Francisco, which he refused to allow to grow to the size of more than 25 people. He was basically, everything that he did was aimed at involving people with the brands that he was trying to advertise. So this is a typical example of something that they did with a kangaroo. This was designed to launch Qantas in the United States. And basically, you had to name give one of their aeroplanes a name in order to win the kangaroo. Yes.
What do you think of the Meerkat campaign, which almost kind of became too successful, and people thought that the website was kind of Meerkat instead of the market?
Yeah, I think it was really good, and it was certainly very successful. It sold a lot of insurance.
But it's not just about advertising, is it? I mean, you've got all this software, you get your insurance from that, and
Absolutely.
it's sport, it's much more.
Yeah.
Who makes money from that? The advertising company or compare the market?
No, compare the markets with that's all licensing.
But they're almost too successful because everybody started thinking it's compare the Meerkat, not compare the market.
Yeah.
And they had to retract a bit, didn't they?
They've had to get the balance right.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great campaign. I think that does, in a sense, exactly what sort of Sugars and Spectators did, which involves the brand name, it makes you remember it, makes it, and then he makes the brand likeable. I mean, what's the most likeable comparison site? You know, I mean, most people would say that just because of the that's I think likability is huge. So yeah, and so this was the follow-up brand. They actually found the winner, and they decided to call the aeroplane Sam. And this one, this is what our side is. This is a campaign I really like. I don't think we've seen this before. This was done the town of I can't remember the name of the town. I'll tell you. Town in Brazil. Their blood banks were running low, and the local team Victoria played in red and black. So they got the switch to playing in black and white. And as people gave blood, they put the shots up.
That's awesome.
And it was awesomely successful. They hit their target. I don't think they got to where all the shots. And it was, I just think it's a great example of what I'm talking about in terms of just involving communities, creating communities, using advertising campaigns to create communities and to create togetherness. And it's a good example also of what I believe advertising does best, which is actually to communicate human values. And it's kind of the opposite of the. So that's really all I had to say. I think, as I say, I think that as an advertiser, that's what I aspire to do, and to add value to these people, to entertain people, and hopefully to engage people and to make people like us is the ultimate aim.
People tend to like people who are a bit like them.
Yeah.
There's a sense of tribe, the sense of sameness, the sense of we're all the same.
Yeah.
But advertising succeeds because we're different. So how do you reconcile appealing to the audience that this is really different, but you're all the same? How do you get that balance between sameness and difference?
Well, I think that, if you look at sugar gags, the best gags are the ones that are plausibly nuts. Sorry?
Give us a plausibly nuts one.
Yeah, so the example of where the guy shaves his collie dog. I mean, the shepherd is never really going to shave his dog, or shear his dog, sorry. But we shoot it in such a way that actually, it's completely, okay, he's sheared his dog. Did you shear his dog? Yeah, you wouldn't really have done that. So that engages people. Nobody goes, oh, that's just stupid dog. Because they don't work. We've done a few of those, they don't work. But at the same time, but it really intrigues people. So hang on a minute, I want to see that again. How did you do? How can we do that? What made that happen? And I think it's Darwinian, because if you see a joke like that, it kind of modifies what you think of experience, and something your brain goes, do not compute, watch it again. It's almost. I think that's a lot of what we find funny. Similarly, I think probably the spaceman Manny Luton. Also is an example of that. But it's just kind of, like I say, plausibly nuts, to have a bunch of astronauts that are a bit sheepish waiting at the luggage recheck. It's like kind of, it's just, yeah. So it's just getting that. You're right. There's a fine balance that you've got to hit, and we have missed it a few times. But it's just getting that.
The reference you were doing Jersey, you have gone to Jersey. What would you be doing, and how would you stick that in 10 seconds?
Oh, that's a really unfair question to ask.
Should have got to Guernsey.
Visit Jersey, Guernsey should be thinking in terms of making the islands different or a compelling case to invest or whatever. Well, not the old-fashioned, whatever they are doing.
That's a very complicated question to answer. I could dodge it by saying that we did actually manage to get Guernsey Airport to put up a sign which said "Welcome to Jersey." And then they took it down after 3 weeks.
Going by what you were saying earlier, to be controversial and get people thinking. Presumably a 10-second line would be, welcome to the second best place in the world. Because inevitably everyone's going to go, really? What's the first? You get thinking, where do you say the first? You'll go, oh, well, of course you could say the first.
Yeah.
If you say the second, you go, Guess what criteria? Who was first? You immediately started to play.
Well, that's a smart tactic. That's a very smart strategy.
Actually, it might give you a job.
I don't know who's got the tourist.
Do the bean counters? Sorry. Do the bean counters at Specsavers see a difference with every campaign?
That's a tricky question to answer because we kind of don't count beans quite like that. We look at we do track we track the ads and you see ups and downs in awareness and you see the apps better ads create higher awareness. Tracking TV ads is kind of relatively easy. It's well established. Tracking digital is really, really difficult. There are lots of different measurements and lots of different metrics available to media companies seem to use the same ones, hopefully. But we do look at, obviously we have conversation which we have all the time, so we do look at the results and stuff. So we know basically when our ads are to be honest with you, as far as the bean counts is concerned, look at the sales. And you see a kind of correlation between the advertising and sales, and it's actually quite close.
What's been your most successful and your least successful?
The most successful ad we've ever run is the Collier by miles. We've run it since, we made it in 2006, and it's run at least once and sometimes twice a year ever since. People don't seem to get sick of it, and it increases our sales. Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
In the TV series The Apprentice, Alan Sugar famously sort of goes for juggling advertising and marketing. And his line is, there's no point in being subtle, just scream the product name as many times as you can in 30 seconds. One of the challenges, I'm not necessarily sure I subscribe to that view, but there is certainly a danger that advertising is entertaining, but you actually forget the product.
Yeah.
How do you strike that balance? How do you address the Alan Sugar cynicism that I'm not shipping widgets?
I think that the first duty as an advertiser is to be easy and stable and then your brand name. And your second duty is not to build ads on you and retain that. And I think if you repeat the brand name consistently, just retain it. I think it's a question of balance. So I think you get people to remember the brand name, but stay with the process and then they'll like you.
Budweiser did that with the frogs, didn't they? Very well. Budweiser with the frogs a few years back.
Absolutely, yeah.
The name again and again and again, but you couldn't help but laugh at it.
Yeah.
But also they had appalling sales as a result. And that's a really interesting campaign. It absolutely flopped in terms of sales.
You wonder if frog and beer goes together like that.
It's interesting what you're just saying to Tim's question, because I think we're constantly, as advertisers, kind of told more and more now that it's less about specific campaign and products, but more brand recognition, get people to recognise the brand, buy into the brand and the friendliness of the brand. And yet, I've seen that Cialini, Cannellini thing on Facebook before, and you've not branded it other than just writing should have gone to Specsavers, and it looked like it looks like a 14-year-old could have put that together in Word, and screenshot it. In fact, I have seen it, and I didn't for a minute think that it would have come direct from your marketing guy, because it's not branded than your tagline. So there's a lot of thought and kind of decisions went into putting that out. So how much does that kind of come into your campaign management now, kind of overtly marketing as Specsavers and just kind of subtly just pushing your messages out, not necessarily thinking directly back to yourself?
Well, we think about the balance of branding of everything, and if the lines are on Specsavers or something, it's kind of they need to put what they call it sometimes, because I think we do it up. But we kind of have the red of everything. I mean, that was, we've done a few of those ads, and we try and make them look quite harmless.
Yeah.
Because it's almost better if it looks like someone's just done it, because we've just done it. And we try and get them out the next day.
Yeah.
So we don't want it to look too much like if we put a fancy border around it or reverse it out black or something, I don't think it would make it, It's almost better to be spontaneous.
Yeah. Certainly online and social media, would you see that theory kind of spreading out further into press campaigns or even on TV?
Yeah, I think increasingly press is an extension of social media. We use it. We ran all those ads in papers. we run the same, obviously run the same way as we run social media. Social media is actually the lead media. But the newspapers do actually feel the importance of social media. And of course, a lot of newspapers are online anyway, so so it's kind of all logical. That's happening increasingly with everything's social spread.
What's the balance then, picking up on that theme in terms of cause and effect? If we talk about democratisation of publicity and all the rest of it, and anyone can do anything in their bedroom in 5 minutes and knock it out, is there an element of that's forcing you to adopt the same strategy, or is you doing that strategy forcing them to? Who's leading who?
Well, it's, like I say, it's really interesting because when we actually do sort of crowdsourcing stuff, we have tried it, we've done it in lots of different ways. But when we just kind of put out an invitation for anybody to submit stuff, we get awful crap. You get a few kind of stuff, a few bits of stuff that you might want to use, but hardly anything. And certainly if you kind of make a page available and stick it on the page, it doesn't look good because people kind of send in stuff that's too obvious, or stuff that's funny, or stuff that's obscene, or whatever. You just get an awful lot of rubbish. Crowdsourcing the other way, where you actually kind of go out to large groups of creatives, you end up paying attention to agencies. So it's a tricky one. We haven't really quite cracked it. We will do it. Got the ideas.
If you've got a limited budget, where's your best place to advertise? Is it print? Is it television? Is it radio? Is it?
It just depends who you're going to reach. I mean, if you've got a limited budget, usually the best thing to do is identify exactly who you're talking to, and then try and target them as closely as you possibly can, because then you'll spend as little as you possibly can.
It depends on the product. I mean, in some cases, you go and meet the person and buy them a coffee. That's what your market is.
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about. If you're talking to one person, if you're talking to a small, if you talk to a small age group across, it depends on geographic area, it depends on. But the rule of thumb for me is that the more places you can target something, the cheaper it's going to be.
But if you're targeting a coffee drinker, I mean, that's across the board. So do you have in your experience where you know that you're getting the best results from?
Well, you have to remember that I've worked at Specsavers for 15 years, so actually when I went to London it was actually pre-digital. But we... So probably an example of that was I did a campaign for Radio Rentals, which was a dying brand at the time. And basically the only people that were renting, when we looked at their sales figures, the only people that were renting TVs and videos were in a sort of a kind of 18 to 23 age group, and they just thought it was weird. We looked into it and realised it was students. So we did a takeaway bid and postcard campaign around all the university campuses. We actually managed to reply a brand new 6 months. But that's an example, I think, of what we're talking about. Is the more closely you can target people that you want to talk to, that was a digital campaign.
Awesome. All right, Graham, thank you. Before I let you go for a break,